Going to be looking in Judges chapter 7. Judges chapter 7 is where this event takes place. This location is called En Harod. En means spring or well. So this is the well of Harod. This is where it starts and it comes out of, the spring of Harod. And Judges chapter 7 verse 1 says that Gideon and all his army pitched at the well of Harod. So we're in the right place. This is where it starts. We're at the well. We're at the spring where it took place. They're fighting the Midianites. The Midianites are over on the hill of Moreh. If you look back in the distance, you can see it, just a hazy look. But that's the hill of Moreh, and the Midianites have 135,000 soldiers up on the hill of Moreh. On this side, we have the Israelites. They're on Mount Gilboa. They have 32,000 soldiers. The odds are 4-1. 4 Midianites for every Israelite. So it's looking pretty rough. And God says, Gideon, you've got too many. You need to reduce your army. And so he says, I want you to go to them, and whoever's afraid, whoever's fearful, whoever has a trembling heart, you tell them they can go back home, that they don't even have to stay. So he makes this announcement, and out of 32,000, 22,000 leave and go back home. So he is now left with 10,000 soldiers. The odds have just jumped to 13-1. 13 Midianites to 1 Israelite. So he has 10,000, and God says, Gideon, you still have too many. I want you to reduce that. And what I want you to do, I want you to bring them to this spring. And I'm gonna put a little test there, and I want you to do what I say. And he says, have the men drink some water out of this spring. And so he says, if they lap like a dog, tell them to go home. But if they kneel and drink the water, they can stay. So just imagine 10,000 men along this curving way coming out through here. And the Bible says out of the 10,000 that were drinking, 9,700 lap like a dog. How many they got left now? 300 soldiers. Now the question arises, and there's many answers for this, or many scholars have different opinions. Why would God let the ones lapping like a dog go home? You ever seen a dog lap before? Yeah. Or a cat lap before? What do? Let's say my Bible is my weapon. Okay, I have my weapon in my hand. All right, I'm ready to fight, whatever. If I'm going to lap like a dog, what do I have to do? I got to put my weapon down, and I have to get on my stomach, and I have to put my mouth in the water. Now, if I do that, am I concerned about my fellow soldiers? Am I concerned about the enemy around? I'm not concerned about any of that. All I'm concerned about is me, that I'm getting water from this well. But then the other ones, what did they do? The Bible says they knelt down and they cupped their hand to their mouth. Still have my weapon in hand, and I can still look around at the enemy soldier. So I believe what he was saying was, those guys who just care about themselves, those who aren't really caring about the enemy, if they're just worried about themselves and they're not worried about fighting with the others, send them on home. And so he is left with 300 soldiers. And the Bible now says it's 135,000 to 300. You know what the odds are now? 450 to 1. And God says, now I'm ready. Now we're ready to fight. Unfortunately, Gideon's still not convinced. Gideon's fearful, just like all of us usually are. And Gideon says, you know what, I'm going to take a servant over to the hill of Moreh. I'm going to sneak over to their camp. And when I get over there, I'm just going to scout the place. And he and a servant goes over. And the Bible says as they're over there, they hear one of the Midianite soldiers talking about a dream that he has. God allows Gideon to hear this dream. And this pagan soldier says, you know what? I had a dream that there was a loaf of bread falling down this hill, and this loaf comes down and crushed our tent. And the other person he's talking to says, oh, that you know what that means? That's the sword of Gideon defeating us. And boy, Gideon hears that, and he says, now I'm ready to fight. And what's amazing to me is, have you ever noticed how many times Gideon was told to go and do things for God? Remember, the angel showed up, and he sees Gideon threshing, and he says, Gideon, you are a man of mighty valor. Go fight. And he says, no, we can't do that. Then Gideon sets a fire up, a sacrifice, or a sacrifice, and the angel lights it on fire. And he says, we're behind you, Gideon. Go get him. Gideon says, I'm not ready yet. I want another sign. I'm going to put a fleece down. And if you can just put water on the fleece and dry around the ground, then I'll be ready. God does it. You know what he says? I'm not ready yet. I want you to put water now on the fleece or on the ground and keep the fleece dry, and then I'll be ready. God does it. And he's still not ready. Yet he hears two pagans talking about a dream they have, and then he says, now I'm ready. So the next day, you know the story, the 300 go, they surround the camp, they have their trumpets, they have their lamps, they have their pitchers, and in the middle of the night, they break those pitchers, they sound those trumpets, and they light their torches, and it confuses the enemy. And in the end, the enemy ends up killing themselves, and Gideon gets the battle. All that took place right out here, but it all started right along here in this spring. So what we're going to do now, we're all going to get in here, and we're going to lap like dogs. All of you, on your stomach. But that's how the story of Gideon goes, and it's a wonderful, wonderful story. So we're going to turn it over to